Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be textbook date, then ghosted. I've got an email from a guy, met a girl on Tinder, had a textbook first date, went really well, ended back at her place with a nice session of the Indoor Olympics. He spent the night, and I guess the next morning she asked him about getting together and when she could see him again, which he told her a day. She said, I'll get back to you to confirm that I got that night off. She did get back to him. Supposedly the plans were set. And then she proceeds to text him for a couple of days. And then the day before the date, he texts her. She doesn't reply. And then he calls her the day of the date. He doesn't say if he actually went on the date or he went to where they were supposed to meet, but he's like, what the hell? So this is a pretty common thing, especially the younger people. They just ghost you. And it's part of, because the other thing you look at, she's on Tinder. And it's kind of the paradox of choice. She may have an ex in the background. There's lots of other dudes on there. Maybe the sex was bad. There could be a lot of reasons, but at the end of the day, she just disappears. And as a guy, you have a connection. You're thinking, what the hell? Because you don't know what's going on. She doesn't communicate. She just totally disappears and ignores you. And that's like the kind of the advent of the cell phones and texting, that it's pretty common, especially in the dating apps. If somebody's got too many choices, it's like, especially if it's a girl that is just sleeping around and doesn't really have any loyalty to anybody. She finds somebody she likes better, blows you off without any remorse. But it shows the character, because character is destiny. And even though it stings for this guy that this has happened, these are the things you have to go through. In the old days, back when I was growing up in the 80s, early 90s, you call, you leave a message, you just don't get a call back. It's like, okay. But occasionally you might get stood up for a date, especially if you're supposed to meet somewhere. But if you knew the girl, you'd be driving to her house. So the likelihood of her, you showing up at her house and her not being there that almost never would happen. And now just with digital devices and texting and messaging apps, it's just really easy, especially with women that have no character, no integrity. I mean, that's just a shitty thing to do to somebody, just to blow them off when you make plans like that. You could at least text and say, hey, I'm not going to make it, but just to completely ignore somebody. And then have the potential of them, especially in this case, because he stayed at her house, showing up at her house for another date. So let's go through his email. He says, hey, Coach, I met this girl on Tinder, and our conversation went so great that I decided to ask her out on a date. I live in London, and she lives 2 hours away, and I was in a traveling mood, so I took the coach to her. I blew her socks off, and she blew mine. She did around 80% of the talking, and I kept asking her open-ended questions and was genuinely interested in her. We went to a few restaurants and bars and explored some parts of her city, and we've both had an amazing time. I was focusing on hanging out, having fun, and hooking up, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and making her smile and feel comfortable. At one of the bars, I decided to make my move, and all of the attraction signs were there, and I could tell she could not resist me anymore, so I said with a smirk on my face, you can stop torturing yourself and just kiss me already. So many guys use that, literally the line word for word out of my book. It cracks me up. I still have yet to get an email from somebody go, that's out of Corey Wayne's book. You can at least put it in your own words. Hasn't happened yet. Out of all the millions of copies that are out there floating around. I find that interesting. And then gave her a playful wink. She blushed, looked down, back up at me, gave me a huge smile, and we both moved in for the kiss. Everything sounds great so far. Later, we went to her place, and the Indoor Olympics were on. She brought up seeing each other, and I went along with it. The next morning, we had breakfast at a nearby restaurant. She brought up seeing each other again. This is her idea. Even though you're on a date, and she's like, oh, I want to see you again. Can't wait to see you again. Something along those lines. You're like, sounds normal. At the end of the day, everything looks good. You got to bottom line the actions, because talk is cheap. People talk a lot of shit. There could be an ex-boyfriend that she just broke up with and was just devastated over and told you nothing about him. or a guy she really liked, and then it went sideways, and she gets back on Tinder, meets you, you hook up, she's trying to get over the other guy, and then all of a sudden he comes back in the picture. These are just the things you have to contend with in the dating world. So they had breakfast at the restaurant. She brings seeing each other again. He checks her schedule, and he says, I'm free on Friday evening next week. She said she was working that day and would see if she could have that day off, and if not, she'd still be able to make the date. I told her to take her time and tell me which day works best for her. We kissed goodbye, so the next day comes. She texted me a good morning handsome text, to which I said, good morning, sweetie, give me a call when you're free. He says we spoke on the phone no more than 6 to 8 minutes, made definite plans for Friday, 6:40 p.m., and hung up. So if you already been to her house, you know where she lives, you spent the night there, definite day, definite place to get together, and a definite time. That's what a definite date is. Not just saying, hey, we're going to get together at 6:40 p.m. And so if it was me and I already been in the house and spent the night, I'm going to go to her place, pick her up, and then we're going to go wherever from there. Just the fact that she knows you're coming to her place helps ensure that she keeps the date. But if you're meeting up somewhere else, or you just said, let's plan on 6:40, but you didn't really nail down a place to get together, that's being a little sloppy. But I can't tell from what you said here if that's what you actually did. Because definite plans are definite day, definite time, and a definite place to get together. And in this case, I'd have been planning to go to her place. Because who knows, maybe you hook up before you go out. It's totally possible. Maybe she jumps in your arms, she's really excited to see you. You hook up, then you go out and have some fun, then you come back later, hook up again, spend the night, get up in the morning, got morning wood, have morning sex. She initiated contact the following 2 days, and I tried to keep the conversation short and then get off the phone. There were 3 more days until our date night, and we hadn't contacted each other. Thursday, about 2 p.m., I shoot her a text telling her that she could keep one of those Polaroid pictures that we took, and if there is a way to duplicate it. Friday comes, date night, she still didn't respond. Obviously, that's not a good sign. And on top of that, that's just fucking rude. Absolutely fucking rude. This guy was beating up her pelvis just a few days earlier, spent the night at her house, had a great date, had breakfast the next day, and then just to completely blow somebody off like that, that just shows the girl has zero integrity. She belongs in the streets. It's just rude. Obviously, more than likely, probably a missing father in her life. She wasn't taught integrity and how to treat other people. Probably a spoiled little brat. Probably a ratchet chick on top of that. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at her actions, those are not the actions of the kind of woman that you're going to have a good relationship with. That's just somebody that's rude and selfish, narcissistic, probably grew up without a dad, probably had no boundaries growing up. She's a little bit of a tyrant. And on top of that, she gets on Tinder, which just blows her ego up even more because there's just thousands of thirsty dudes throwing their dicks at her all day long. He says she ended up ghosting me completely. I gave her a call and a text asking her where she was. No answer, and I haven't texted her since. So again, just a little bit of critique. I'm not sure if you actually had a definite date, because if you had a definite date, there would have been no reason to text her. I would have just showed up at her house at 6:30 or 6:40 when you had the original date. But again, he didn't really give those details. He says, being a 3% man, I have to take responsibility, so I think she got upset that I hadn't texted her. Well, you guys had just been talking a few days before, and you actually did text her, but she ignored you. And so if you were if she texted you 2 days in a row and then you didn't text or initiate any kind of texting for a day or two, and then she gets pissed off at that and says, oh, I'm going to ghost this guy, what does that tell you? She's insecure. She's kind of a nut. And so she took herself out of the running. And again, that's why you apply what's in 3% man, is that you can weed out the nuts and the lunatics and the insecure girls, the ones that get butthurt and upset. You want easygoing, easy to get along with, good communicator, ideally loves her mom, loves her dad, has a good relationship with her dad. She had a good, healthy family. She just, and the family has integrity. Women like this that come from a good family just simply are not going to treat people this way. Women that behave this way, this is what a ratchet does. This is typically somebody that comes from a broken home and has no integrity. And that's the way they're going to treat you. And unfortunately, there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of people that came from messed up backgrounds and messed up homes. Her, whatever father figure was in her life was probably constantly disappointing her. She's probably pissed off. But it also could be that a boyfriend came back in the picture. But either way, she could have at least said, hey, can't make it. Something came up. Hey, my boyfriend and I are talking. We might get back together. If it doesn't work out, I'll get in touch. A woman with integrity would have let you know. She wouldn't just completely ignored you. He says, to go from being very affectionate to this, what did I do? Like I said, maybe the definite date, not having an actual place to meet. But it's hard to tell. Maybe the sex was bad. Maybe a boyfriend came back in the picture. You don't know. At the end of the day, if we take a step back and get beyond the emotions of like what a shitty thing it is to do to you, which obviously it was a very shitty thing for her to do. What do her actions communicate? Her actions communicate fuck off. That's what they basically mean. Fuck off. And I'd delete her number and move on. If she ever reaches out, I'd be like, who's this? It's like, oh, we had a date plan and then you ghosted me. You are absolutely rude and I don't appreciate that. And I want nothing to do with you. I date women that have integrity. I'd chastise her. I would not give a woman like this a second chance because this, as Maya Angelou said, when somebody shows you or tells you who they are, believe them the first time. So she acts like a ratchet. Guess what? She gets treated like a ratchet. So she's now in the ratchet category. It sucks, but if you're going to be on dating apps where women just, quite frankly, have all the leverage, this is what you got to deal with. You're going to have a higher instances of these kinds of things happening. That's why I prefer in-person connections, because you can feel it. You can feel that energy. You can feel that connection, and it's unmistakable. And other people observing when you have a connection with somebody else can see it, and they can feel it as well. And so that's why I personally don't participate in that part of the dating world, just because dealing with ratchet people like this. I like to deal with people who have honor and who have integrity and say what they mean and mean what they say. I have absolutely no use for people that are bullshit artists that'll tell you all kinds of flowery things and then not follow through on any of them. It's important that the people that you allow into your inner circle have integrity and treat you well. Because when you continue to stay involved with people like this, you're telling the universe, send me more of them. Those people are okay. I'll take them. I'll put up with it. It's like, I just would never put up with it. That's how I would handle it. But it sounds like I said, the only thing I could think of, maybe the sex sucked. Maybe a boyfriend came back in the picture. But at the end of the day, the chick's a ratchet because of the way she treated you. So therefore, she's permanently disqualified herself, and I would never get together or see her ever again. Even if she reaches out and is apologetic, there's no excuse for treating another human being that way. And she's going to go through life and she's going to get burned. She's going to have a tough life because of it. Well, it's like that's on her. Karma, you can't outrun karma. So karma will catch up with her eventually. And you can take solace in that. Just get out there, keep grinding, on to the next. So if you've got a question or challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.